between Indigenous communities and the mining company is an example of what we see in many places across the country, but what we need to see more of. What IAMGOLD has been able to do in working with Flying Post and with the other First Nations here really demonstrates that this is the way things need to be done. In partnership, in respect, understanding that there's long-term work to be done together and opportunities for everyone to benefit. This is part of reconciliation, and government has its role to play, but private sector and communities also have important roles to play as we move forward. And the more we can highlight the good jobs that are coming out of investments like this, it'll be good for the community, good for Indigenous peoples, but also good long-term for the sustainability of our country is the kind of thing we need to see more of. Oui, bien sûr. Ce qu'on voit ici en termes de partenariat entre la compagnie minière et les Premières Nations est un exemple à suivre, de démontrer qu'on comprend que quand on travaille ensemble pour assurer des bénéfices pour les communautés, pour les individus, pour les travailleurs, mais aussi pour les compagnies et pour le pays dans l'avenir, c'est des bonnes choses. C'est un modèle qu'on voit ailleurs à travers le pays, mais à chaque fois qu'on le voit, on doit souligner que c'est la bonne façon de faire et que ça permet d'aller de l'avant avec des grands projets comme ça.
Well, first of all, I apologize before I answer the question. I got to give a shout out to my daughter. It's her 25th birthday, Kyla, and I'm going to be racing home 6.5 hours to make sure I get there tonight. To answer your question about what this brings not only to this community, but up in the Ring of Fire, it's amazing when there's collaboration between the federal government, provincial government, and the Indigenous community. And what this allows us to do is to allow the Indigenous communities across Ontario to partner up with other levels of government to bring prosperity to their community and growth and a paycheck that they can take care of their families and work within the community. So there's a tremendous opportunity right across the province. Ontario is one of the mining leaders in the entire world, and as long as we all work together, it's going to be great for everyone in Ontario and especially great for the Indigenous community.
Hi, this is a question for the Prime Minister. I'll ask in English, mais si vous pouvez répondre dans les deux langues officielles, s'il vous plaît. Bob Woodward's new book has Donald Trump being told on January 28th that COVID-19 would be the biggest national security challenge of his presidency, and him saying, in February that the virus is deadlier than the flu and more transmissible. But here in Canada, as late as March 7th, your government was saying that the risk to Canadians was low. So when did you first become aware that COVID-19 was a major threat to Canada?
As of January 2nd, Dr. Tam convened a meeting of her counterparts across the provinces to talk about the concern around this potential virus infection. Throughout the month of January, we had meetings including incident response group meetings where we looked at the concerns we had and talked about our preparation, and that continued. Every step of the way, we were informed by our experts as to how to keep Canadians safe, what needed to be done, what measures would be helpful in continuing to support Canadians as we were aware of this potential. But as people know, we were very much learning on the way as we responded. The commitment we made to Canadians that we would be there for them, we would put their safety first, and that's what we've done every step of the way. Canadians pulled together over these past months, have managed to flatten the curve, and we're seeing reopening in the economy. We're seeing investments coming back in. But we need to keep vigilant. We need to continue to be very careful. We need to be continuing to wear our masks, continuing to keep our distances, and make sure that we do not see a spike in a second wave that we know would be deadly for Canadians and perhaps cause us to have to go back to the unpleasant places we were in the spring where we were all in lockdown. So as we continue to learn more about this virus, as we continue to do everything we can to keep safe, I just want to continue to remind Canadians to continue listening to public health recommendations and keep each other safe. Dès le début janvier, l'Agence de santé publique a eu des rencontres avec ses homologues à travers les provinces pour regarder la situation qui se déroulait en Chine, pour préparer le Canada. On a continué d'être engagé en tant que gouvernement. On a eu des rencontres de haut niveau à la fin janvier pour parler justement de ce virus. On a continué de travailler avec nos experts, nos scientifiques, nos médecins, pour faire tout ce qu'on avait de besoin pour protéger les Canadiens. Et évidemment, on a eu beaucoup d'apprentissage sur comment réagir dans des pandémies. Mais ce qu'on a pu faire, c'est d'être là pour les Canadiens, pour les garder en sécurité. On a pu contrôler, malgré toutes les tragédies, assez bien l'éclosion du virus. Mais on doit continuer d'être vigilant, on doit continuer de porter des masques, continuer de garder nos distances, continuer de protéger ses êtres, ses proches, mais aussi les travailleurs de première ligne. On a du travail encore à faire pour se protéger pendant qu'on recommence l'économie. Et on va continuer d'être là les uns pour les autres parce que c'est ce qu'on fait au Canada.
Hi, my question is for Mr. Trudeau. Monsieur Trudeau, Ezra Cousineau de Radio-Canada Nord de l'Ontario. Toutefois, j'ai une question de mes collègues d'Ottawa. Écoutez, le gouvernement s'est engagé à verser aux provinces 19 milliards de dollars pour faire face donc à la COVID, 2 autres milliards pour la rentrée scolaire. Toutefois, il semble que les provinces attendent toujours le versement de ces sommes. Pouvez-vous, s'il vous plaît, nous dire qu'est-ce qui se passe avec ces sommes et aussi quand est-ce que les provinces peuvent-elles s'attendre à recevoir cet argent? Merci, monsieur.
On a été très, très contents de pouvoir arriver à des accords avec les provinces pour 19 milliards de dollars pour aider avec le relancement sécuritaire de l'économie. Ça a été encore une indication de comment les différents paliers de gouvernement ont travaillé ensemble, sont tout alignés pour bien protéger les Canadiens, pour appuyer cette relance économique de la bonne façon. En termes d'action, ce qu'on a demandé aux provinces, c'est d'établir leur plan pour les 19 milliards de dollars. On a reçu les soumissions des provinces et j'espère pouvoir faire couler l'argent vers les provinces dans les semaines à venir et pour le 19 milliards et pour le 2 milliards. Mais on va continuer de travailler ensemble sur ces enjeux dans les mois à venir. On sait qu'il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire pour appuyer les Canadiens, pour relancer l'économie et pour garder les gens en sécurité. We were very pleased to be able to demonstrate the level of collaboration, partnership, and cooperation between all orders of government across this country. Being able to come together with a $19 billion agreement for a safe restart of our economy, to be able to step up with $2 more billion on specifically safe schools reopening so that our kids can be extra protected as they start school again. These were things that are important to all Canadians and something I was very, very pleased to work with the premiers on, particularly Premier Ford, who was very strong on both of those measures as we moved forward. We have worked out the agreements in details now, and the money should be flowing within the coming weeks.
So we heard Minister Rickford talk about how it took a SWAT team to really open this mine. What's the federal government doing to see more announcements like this in the future?
This federal government is very much focused on investing in the mining sector and creating good jobs for communities right across the country. It's important that we do it with an eye towards the future, which means sustainability, which also means partnership with Indigenous communities. And the way I Am Gold has worked with local Indigenous communities is a model that we certainly would see in many places across the country and would like to see in more places across the country. But that's something that needs to be worked on, and I know Premier Ford and many different partners across the country have been working very hard on developing more economic opportunities for Indigenous communities as we work together on reconciliation. There's many potential projects around the Ring of Fire that are being looked at, and we're going to continue to make sure that they're done right, but that we move forward in creating good jobs for Canadians in Indigenous communities and remote communities, and indeed right across the country.
Hello, this is for the Prime Minister. Hi, I'm Lydia from CTV News in Timmins. This is a question for the national news. We Charity closed their Canadian operations in part because of the political firestorm that came from them being chosen to deliver the Canada Student Service Grant. Do you take any responsibility for the closing of We Charity in Canada?
From the beginning of this pandemic, we made a decision to move quickly to support Canadians. We broke bureaucratic records in getting the Canada Emergency Response Benefit out to Canadians who needed it in record time. We moved forward with the wage subsidy to help businesses keep people on their workforce, on the payroll, even though we had an almost total shutdown of the economy. We move forward on initiatives to support seniors, to support Canadians with disabilities, to help out in particular sectors. And yes, we moved very quickly to try and support young people with a range of different measures. What we tried to do with the Canada Student Grant was encourage young people to volunteer in communities across this country as they were and give them recognition for that. And in order to do that, we moved rapidly with a partner that we felt was able to actually deliver it. Obviously, the way it ended up working out was really unfortunate for everyone involved, particularly for the students who didn't get those grants over the course of the summer for the volunteer work and the community work they were doing in the summer. As I said, I regret not having recused myself in the beginning because of the perception involved, but there was no conflict of interest here. And as a government, we will continue to work extremely hard to support our young people through this pandemic, even as they continue to step up in communities across this country to help us get through this COVID-19 crisis.
My question is about resource revenue sharing. Premier Ford, your government has promised to share more of the tax revenue from mining and forestry with Northern Ontario municipalities and First Nations. I'm wondering if we are close to hearing a plan for when that might happen or if that's been affected by COVID-19. And for the Prime Minister, I'm wondering if that's something the federal government would consider as well, providing more of the tax revenue from resource projects to the communities directly affected.
Well, Minister Rickford, I always say he's an all-star up here. He works extremely well with the Indigenous community, also the Minister of Mining and Forestry and Development. And he has a strong plan moving forward to have resources shared amongst Indigenous communities. Is so important because without the Indigenous community support, no matter where we are, this just doesn't happen. So again, just like the Prime Minister said, when everyone works collaboratively together, it's a win-win-win for everyone across the board. Well, thank you.
Natural resource revenues are strongly a provincial responsibility, and the federal government won't be telling them what to do with their revenue. But as Doug has clearly shown, and as we've seen, things work better when there are partnerships, meaningful partnerships with benefits that accrue to Indigenous peoples and local communities. And that is ultimately the way to move forward in the right way, both for sustainability, but also for reconciliation. And there's lots of different approaches on doing that, but the bottom line is people need to be included and feel part of the process as we move forward, and that's something that the federal government will always be there as a partner to encourage. Oui, bien sûr. C'est important de respecter les compétences des provinces en termes de matière de revenus, de ressources naturelles. Mais comme le Premier ministre a souligné, c'est important que les communautés autochtones sentent les bénéfices du travail qui se fait sur leur territoire. De créer des partenariats où il y a des bénéfices pour tout le monde, c'est la seule façon d'avancer avec des grands projets comme ceux-ci dans les années 2020. Donc, nous allons devoir travailler encore plus main dans la main avec les communautés autochtones sur des projets de ressources naturelles. Et le gouvernement fédéral sera toujours là pour aider avec cette réconciliation, aider avec ces partenariats.
This is a question for the Premier. So today your government announced that there will be tracking for COVID cases in schools. Now, you've also said before that parents play a very important role in screening children for signs of COVID.
Yep.
Will your government be legislating any job protections or wage replacements for parents who may have to stay at home for quite lengthy periods of time if their children are showing some signs, some symptoms of COVID?
Well, we're always there to support the people, no matter if it's parents that have to stay at home. And I've always said we're going to be transparent. It's online right now, so it's up and running. But not only for schools, but for childcare as well. And we'll do whatever it takes to support parents. It's not their fault that they have to stay at home and take care of a sick child. So we'll be there and support them, and we'll be working with our Minister of Finance and other ministries to make sure, Minister of Education, to make sure that they're supported.
Sorry, just to double check, you're open to the possibility of
We're
some
always
legislation?
open to the possibility of supporting families that are in need, as the federal government has shown, as the provincial government. We've spent over $30 billion supporting companies and people right across this province, and we're grateful once again for the support the federal government has shown supporting ourselves, especially in municipalities and transit. Wide range of different items when they came to the table with a massive package, and we're grateful for that. So we're always open to making sure that we support the people, keep them back on their feet, and we'll get over this, and everyone will prosper and grow.
The question, I guess, is for both of you. Yesterday, you announced big investments for mental health, and the
Yes.
people of that working that field are happy about that.
Yes.
Yet, the French people in Ontario and the people who work in that area kind of say that even that money won't help them give more, service in French. And I understand that there's COVID-19 and bilingualism might not be like the priority right now. But regarding mental health, I mean, if you don't speak English or badly, a bit like me, I guess it's hard to express a mental distress in another language. So I just want to know: are you going to handle this issue? And also, Mr. Trudeau, as the Prime Minister of Canada, can you be a champion, for like all the French Canadians all over the different provinces, mostly here in Ontario, because we need help in French with mental health?
First of all, I couldn't ask for a better Minister of Francophone Affairs than Caroline Mulroney. She has done so much work for the Francophone community here in Ontario, and we'll support the Francophone community as we have, along with the rest of the communities. Our province is made up of people around the world, and obviously the Francophone community and has been here from day one, and I'll always support them. They have a large community here in the north, and we're there to support them any way we can, and we're going to continue supporting them. But going back to mental health, again, there's no two governments in the history of this country, the federal government and the provincial government, that have ever put more money into mental health and addiction. I always add addiction, so important, to a tune of $3.8 billion. Those are staggering figures. The province put in $1.9 billion. The federal government matched it. So there's a tremendous amount of funding out there, a tremendous amount of programs, and it's absolutely critical. Even before the pandemic, it's critical. And we're the first government in Ontario ever to have a Minister of Mental Health and Addiction. So we take this very seriously, and we'll always support the people that need our help. And it was a great announcement of $14.5 million here in Sudbury. So there's a lot of programs going around, and Minister Tabolo has been doing a great job as our Minister of Mental Health and Addiction.
Thank you, sir.
In terms of mental health, when we got elected in 2015 as a government, we put forward record $5 billion specifically for mental health services across the provinces, and provinces have shown tremendous leadership in stepping up. But we know there is more to do, and we will continue to work with them on responding to the very real challenges that this COVID crisis has brought, layered on to the addictions challenges around the opioid crisis, and so many different aspects of mental health that we need to continue to work on as a country in supporting people and fighting. And in regards to Francophone Canadians, whether they're in minority situations across the country or in Quebec. We will always be there to defend the French language. Je pense que c'est important de reconnaître qu'on est un gouvernement qui, dès le début en 2015, a investi, a donné de l'argent aux provinces pour la santé mentale et les provinces à travers le pays sont en train d'investir pour répondre aux besoins criants en termes de santé mentale. On va continuer de travailler avec eux. C'est un enjeu avec la COVID, c'est un enjeu avec la crise des opioïdes, c'est un enjeu qui de plus en plus frappe les gens, les communautés et on sera toujours là pour répondre. Par rapport aux Français, oui, évidemment, on sera toujours là. On a toujours été le parti qui défendait les minorités linguistiques à travers le pays. Nous allons toujours être là pour défendre le français au Canada à travers les provinces, mais aussi on va être là pour défendre le français au Québec. On a un rôle à jouer et on va tous faire partie de ce défi-là pour préserver notre belle langue française.
Les besoins actuels par rapport à la COVID-19 santé mentale, s'il vous plaît?
On reconnaît les pressions de la COVID-19 par rapport à la santé mentale dans les communautés. On va continuer de travailler avec les provinces pour assurer qu'il y a des services pour la santé mentale, mais on reconnaît et on respecte les compétences des provinces de livrer les services pour leurs citoyens.
Merci.
I have a question for Premier Ford. Lydia from CTV News. Premier, it's such great news here today. They're going to start construction in a couple of weeks, but we know that perhaps a second wave of COVID is looming. What can you tell or what can you say to businesses and corporations, like Côté Gold, I Am Gold? What's your advice as we all have to prepare for the second wave if they want to get this mine going?
Well, I go back to the golden rules. The 3 golden rules: continue wearing face mask and sanitize and keep social distancing is critical. I want to congratulate the people of the North. They've been following the protocols of the Chief Medical Officer, and we have 18 regions throughout the province that have 0 cases, and they're listening, and they're following the guidelines, and it's just amazing the work they've done. So I want to thank them. Where we're seeing an uptick are a couple regions. Toronto, obviously, large population. There were 70 cases reported yesterday. Peel region up 38 cases. York region. So anywhere where there's large urban areas, congregate living especially, that's where we have teams going in there, our health teams going in there to support these communities. And I got to tell you that it's not be it the City of Toronto or the Peel region's fault. This is happening. We got to work together. All I've been asking is please try to avoid these big gatherings. Please try to avoid, the weddings that I heard were 150, 170 people. Just follow the guidelines and everyone will be okay. But our teams are ready. We've learned so much. Our health teams are ready. We have plenty of PPE, not only supply Ontario, but supply the entire country. And as always, remind people, I'll never forget the day when President Trump cut us off from 3M. And I said, never again, as long as I'm Premier, will we ever have to rely on a foreign government, foreign country for our PPEs. And I'm glad to say now that we're self-sufficient. With the support of the Prime Minister, we opened a great plant in Brockville, 3M. They're going to be pumping out millions of N95 masks. We have dozens of companies making these surgical masks. I have Roots Canada switched over from their line. They're making surgical gowns. We have dozens of companies making face shields, hand sanitizer. So they're doing an incredible job. We put into the education system 37 million PPE items, and that's pretty incredible. So I just want to thank the manufacturers that have stood up when we called out for help. There's nothing we can't produce here in Ontario or Canada with the ingenuity and technology and just the manpower. Everyone just pulled together. It's such an amazing feeling. So I just want to thank everyone. Everyone's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All good.
Thank you. Well, Doug, do you have a...
Merci beaucoup. À une prochaine.